Plus, with the micro boombox, load the mother load. Some of these songs available now. More this fall, you can collect them all. Hit clips, each sold separately.
How did millions of kids get convinced to spend $4 on 60 seconds of a song? And why did it somehow become one of the biggest crazes of the early 2000s before disappearing almost overnight? Today, the idea, to be honest, sounds completely ridiculous. Music is everywhere. Entire libraries of songs fit inside a phone, and streaming services give instant access to almost anything ever recorded on Earth in history. But at the start of the 2000s, things looked slightly different. For kids especially, owning music was expensive. CDs cost real money. Portable CD players were bulky and fragile, and most children didn't have the freedom or the allowance to constantly buy albums. And that created a gap in the market that nobody really expected a toy company to fill. But that's exactly what happened. Now, hit clips weren't sold as serious music devices. They were sold as accessories, collectibles, and tiny symbols of pop culture obsession. And for a brief moment, they completely took over. Now, to understand why they worked, it helps to remember what pop culture looked like at the time. The late 1990s and early 2000s were dominated by teen pop. Boy bands, pop princesses, and music countdown shows shaped almost everything kids listened to.
Performing your ultimate retired TRL video at #1, I Want It That Way.
And songs weren't just entertainment, they were social currency. Knowing the latest hit mattered, wearing the merchandise mattered, and carrying around a tiny plastic clip playing your favorite chorus felt surprisingly important. The challenge was accessibility, because for most kids, buying full albums regularly just wasn't really realistic. You either waited for songs to come on the radio or begged parents to buy expensive CDs. And portable music just wasn't built with younger kids in mind. Discmans skipped constantly, cost way too much, and felt way too fragile. And that's where Tiger Electronics stepped in. You see, the company was already known for wildly successful toys and gadgets, and they saw an opportunity. Instead of competing with actual music devices, they created something simpler. A tiny player built specifically for kids. Now, the idea centered around miniature cartridges that held short clips of songs, and each cartridge contained about 60 seconds of audio, usually focusing on the most recognizable chorus or hook.
Hit clips, micro music system. You can collect them all, each sold separately.
Now, technically, more could have fit on the chips, but limiting the songs to 1 minute made production cheaper and licensing that much easier. And that decision became the entire business model. The clips were inexpensive enough for kids to buy with allowance money, while the player itself was cheap enough to become an impulse purchase. The entire experience was designed around collectability and accessibility rather than sound quality. Because the actual truth was, the sound quality was totally awful. Even at the time, the audio sounded compressed and tinny. The tiny speakers and earbuds made songs feel distant and pretty metallic, but of course, kids didn't care. The point wasn't high-quality listening. The point was ownership. And for the first time, younger kids could carry around pieces of their favorite music in a way that felt personal. And Tiger Electronics made sure the launch strategy was impossible to ignore. Because before hit clips even fully arrived in stores, they appeared inside McDonald's Happy Meals. Millions of kids suddenly got miniature music players featuring clips from massive artists like Britney Spears and NSYNC. It was one of the smartest marketing moves of the era because it instantly placed the product directly into the hands of the exact audience it was targeting. Genius. And the timing was perfect. When the full product line launched in stores, the excitement was already there. Kids recognized the device immediately, and the music library featured the biggest stars in pop culture. Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, Destiny's Child, Smash Mouth, and countless others became part of the lineup. Suddenly, hit clips weren't just toys, they were status symbols. Kids clipped them onto backpacks, traded cartridges with friends, and built collections around their favorite artists. Owning certain songs became a way to show identity and taste, and because the cartridge was small and affordable, collecting them became addictive. And of course, the business exploded. By the early 2000s, millions of units had been sold. The product line expanded rapidly with new players, new accessories, many boom boxes, alarm clocks, and other gadgets designed around the same concept. And for a while, it looked absolutely unstoppable. But beneath that success was a major problem. Hit clips only worked in a very specific moment in time. The entire concept depended on music being difficult to access. It depended on kids being willing to pay for tiny fragments of songs because there weren't many alternatives available to them. And that environment, of course, was already starting to disappear. In 2001, Apple introduced the iPod, and at first it seemed like a completely different market. The iPod was expensive and aimed more toward older audiences, but it represented something much bigger. Portable digital music without limits. Instead of carrying individual cartridges, people could suddenly carry entire music libraries. And that shift changed everything. And at the same time, the internet was rapidly transforming how music worked. File-sharing services like Napster and LimeWire exploded in popularity, completely changing how younger audiences thought about paying for music. Why spend money on 1 minute of a song when entire albums could suddenly be downloaded online? And that question became, of course, impossible to ignore. The business model behind hit clips started looking outdated almost immediately. But technology wasn't the only problem. Pop culture itself was changing. The bright, polished teen pop era that helped fuel hit clips began fading in the early 2000s. Musical tastes diversified, audiences grew older, and trends moved toward different styles and different artists. The exact audience that had made hit clips successful was aging out of them. And once kids became teenagers, 60-second clips no longer felt exciting. They wanted full songs, they wanted full albums, and they wanted better technology. Tiger Electronics' parent company recognized the problem and attempted to adapt. They introduced a new format that expanded the music length to around 2 minutes and redesigned the players to feel more modern. But the damage was unfortunately already done. The new devices weren't compatible with older cartridges, frustrating customers who had already invested in the original format. And more importantly, 2-minute clips still just couldn't compete with MP3 players and downloadable music. The world had moved too quickly. By 2005, the line was officially discontinued, and just a few years after dominating stores and backpacks everywhere, hit clips were gone. The speed of the collapse was almost as surprising as the rise itself. But even though the product disappeared, its legacy became strangely important, because in hindsight, hit clips predicted something about the future of entertainment that most people really didn't notice at the time. They proved people didn't always need full songs to engage with music. Sometimes the hook was enough. The chorus, the recognizable moment, the catchy part people replayed over and over. And that idea actually feels incredibly familiar now. Modern social media platforms are built around short clips of music and instantly recognizable snippets. Entire songs become popular because of 15-second moments repeated millions of times online. So, in a strange way, hit clips arrived years before the culture was fully ready for them. They understood something important long before streaming and short-form media took over. Attention was becoming shorter, music was becoming more portable, and identity was becoming tied to quick, shareable moments. Now that's what makes the story of hit clips so interesting. On the surface, they seem ridiculous. Tiny plastic cartridges with low-quality 1-minute songs really shouldn't have worked, but they worked perfectly for the exact moment they existed in. Their rise came from making music ownership feel affordable, collectible, and personal for kids who had been mostly ignored by the music industry. Their fall came from technology evolving faster than the concept could really adapt. Once unlimited digital music became accessible, the entire idea collapsed almost overnight. But for the kids who grew up with them, the memory stayed. The tiny cartridges, the metallic audio, the feeling of clipping your favorite song onto a backpack like it mattered more than anything else in the world. Because for a brief moment there, it actually did. Some products succeed because they're ahead of their time, others succeed because they perfectly capture a specific moment before the world changes forever. And hit clips, well, somehow managed to do both.